Hey guys, it's Danny, and I am unfortunately not 6 feet tall. I know, I'm sorry for lying to you. To be fair, I am 5'10" and a half. Shout out to this person who got it right, and here are this week's 2 truths and a lie. So per the unusual location, I am actually in Italy right now. I was originally in Greece and then I came here, and I was actually supposed to be home already, but I extended my trip. And I'm going to be traveling by myself for over a month, which is both terrifying and very exciting. So I've been spending a lot of time with my family, obviously, as you're kind of stuck with your family when you're on a vacation. And as much of an amazing experience it's been bonding with them and getting to know them, I guess, differently, one of the main, challenges I've experienced is the fact that I've been feeling very misunderstood and mostly feeling this belief like nobody understands me. The way that I interact with life or approach my everyday experiences is something that the people in my physical life can't really relate to. And so when I try to share my perspective with people, it's almost like my words fall on deaf ears, or people act like they know what I'm talking about, but I don't genuinely feel like they truly understand from here. So that's been a big challenge for me as I've been on this trip, because this is not only something that's been present over the past month as I've been away from home, but it's something that I've also been experiencing in my physical life in general for the past few years. So I want to start off by saying, if you genuinely believe that it is impossible for anybody to understand you, or for anybody to get you, or you just genuinely feel like there's something wrong with you and nobody can understand you because you're not understandable, that's not true. What I want to touch on in this video is more so when you have the awareness that perhaps it is simply a limiting belief that you hold, that nobody understands you. And while you recognize that some aspect of you is obviously interacting with the world through this lens, at the same time, you can't help but see that there is truth in that belief. I think one of the hardest parts about reprogramming your belief system is the fact that sometimes as you're reprogramming these beliefs, you realize that there's truth in them. You realize that you've believed these really uncomfortable negative things about yourself or about the world in general, because there is truth within that belief. And when that happens, it can be so hard to change that when a more objective perspective can still validate bits and pieces of that limiting belief that prevents you from living a more satisfying and fulfilling life. If you are in a situation and you hold this piece of awareness that I am not surrounded by people who understand me, you kind of have 3 options. 1, you can be really sad about it and mope about it and be like, you know what, this shit sucks. 2, you can decide, okay, the people around me don't understand me, so I'm going to pursue new relationships or new friendships or new connections. Or you can connect with the people around you and try to connect on ways in which you do relate or in which you are understood. I personally feel like I do a mix of all 3 of these things. Okay, I'm not the best at actually reaching out and meeting new people. That is very fucking hard for me. But I've said this in a previous video, but I honestly believe that if you're a person that feels misunderstood, or like people don't get you, or like your perspective often falls on deaf ears, it's probably because of the fact that you are here to create a change. If you weren't meant to make a difference in your environment, then you would be a person who is easily understood, a person who is easily accepted, a person who kind of fits into the mold that I guess your culture or family or friend group or peers or your society wants you to be. If you're here to make a change, why would you fit the mold? I think when we really don't feel understood, it points to the fact that our needs are not being met emotionally and socially. And I think the reason for this is because being understood and feeling received and having people be curious about the things we talk about is very integral to us as human beings feeling like we are real, or like we matter, or like people love us or relate to us, or it creates this sense of connection. When we don't really have that in our lives, it takes a serious toll on us. It's really, really hard to walk through the world and feel like so much of how you approach life is something that the people who are in physical proximity to you can't relate to. I view so much of my world through a very spiritual lens. This lens that everything is alive and everything is conscious, and every single time you interact with something, that is a something that is meant for you to interact with, otherwise it wouldn't be there. And honestly, that's a lot easier for me to do with like animals or plants or objects than people. Because right now, in terms of my human connections, I don't feel like I'm getting my needs met. Most of the people who I've met, who I feel that kind of full understanding and acceptance with, are not people who live near me. It's like all of those people in my life are spread out and at different corners of my life, and I feel like I'm kind of just on an island watching it all by myself. And that's really fucking hard. And I don't really have an answer for what to do to change that, or to stop feeling this way, or to get rid of it, because honestly, it's like, shouldn't I feel this way? Like, shouldn't I feel this way if I don't feel like I'm getting my needs met? But another ironic thing is, I was having a day where it was one of my first days in Italy. I was in Sicily, in Siracusa. Excuse the fact that I can't do a proper Italian accent. I was having a really tough day. I was surrounded by my family, and I just could not get out of this feeling of like, I'm not understood. And so like I was connecting with the location and I could feel the location, but I just felt like I could not feel and connect to the people around me, and every single interaction felt so fake and surface level. And it's like, you know, people can see I'm upset, but nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to connect there. And honestly, even sometimes when they did, I like would close my heart and be like, you don't get it. And so it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy of, I expect not to be understood. And so I close off my energy whenever somebody does kind of approach me from that place of concern. Because I'm like, you don't actually care. You're just acting like you care. And all of that response comes down to the fact that people in my past have acted like they cared, and then through their actions later showed that they didn't have my best interests at heart. And then I made that mean they just wanted to seem like a good person. They were more concerned with me liking them or me liking what they did or how they behaved than my actual well-being. And that's a very lonely feeling, because if that's the truth, hypothetically, if that's the truth, that people in my life have never truly cared about me, but only cared about themselves and the way they looked when they were helping me out, then that means I am isolated. Then that means nobody does look out for my best interests. Then that means I really am alone. And so with that belief, of course I'm closing myself off. Of course I'm going to be more defensive. Of course I'm going to feel this sense of nobody understands me, nobody gets me. And if nobody understands me and if nobody gets me, then my behavior is going to reflect that belief. I'm probably going to both voluntarily and involuntarily close myself off to connection. And I'm not going to sit here and say that that's not valuable, because I think there are definitely times and places where that is valuable. Like, for example, if there's someone who abused you and they're trying to get back into your life and you know, and your gut is telling you, then closing yourself off to that person is probably the best thing that you can do in that situation, right? But when we close our heart and when we feel our energy closing off to people, we have to ask ourselves why we're doing it. If it's actually in our best interests to close ourselves off. Because what we're doing is we're trying to protect ourselves from hurt. But if you're hurting so much because you're not connecting with people, and then you're severing the possibility to connect with people for the sake of protecting yourself from hurt, it's a double-edged sword. So the question is, what decision can I make in this now moment that's going to help me work towards building the most satisfaction in my life? Is it pushing this person away, or is it opening my heart to them? I recently, cut off a connection, and I did that because I value myself. I did that because I did not feel like this other person had my best interests at heart. I did not feel like this person had the capacity to be honest with me, and so I said, you know what, I'm releasing that from my life because it's making me really unhappy. But there are people in my life who I know care about my best interests, even if there are moments where they're unconscious, or even if there's moments where sometimes they think they're caring for my best interest when they're not. And I'm closing myself off at times where it's an opportunity to create a further connection, which is what I want in my life. But then I tell myself this story of, I don't want this from them, I want it from someone else who really gets me. But like, let's just consider the possibility that the person and the connection you're looking for is someone who's standing right in front of you. You don't know that unless you've given that other person a chance. And maybe you believe, well, Danny, that can't possibly be true because the person who I think is going to be the person who I feel this connection with is going to have all of these traits. But what if you're attaching yourself to an idea of something that doesn't really exist? But if you're so attached to this idea of what the person you're going to connect to is like, then you're possibly going to miss out on the people standing right in front of you. But you can't know the ways in which these people can connect to you unless you're vulnerable enough to open up your heart. But if you continue closing yourself off to these connections, then you never know how you could connect with these people. Sometimes I look at human beings and I'm just like, we're all in our own little like isolation pods. It's like we're all in these friendships and relationships and social situations alone. It's like we're all in our own bubble and we don't really share like the truth of how we're feeling or the truth of what we're thinking or what's really going on within us. And so we're just all separating from each other when the person who could show you that you're not alone could be sitting right next to you. And you have no idea because you're so busy thinking that nobody could possibly ever understand you. And maybe you're thinking, well, it's obviously not this person because they're smoking a cigarette, so they could never understand. They're unconscious. They don't get it. They would never get the things that I think or I feel because they're a smoker. Why do we do this to ourselves? We put ourselves in these bubbles and then we ask ourselves, why am I so unhappy? Why haven't I found the people that fit into my bubble? Maybe it's because you're using an egoic filter rather than an intuitive filter. You're looking at the outside of people instead of the inside. And I'm gonna be honest, like I do this too. The number one thing that's been helping me through these feelings and feeling like I really do have the possible capacity to break this pattern is learning how to act from compassion, which is really just acting from love. Acting from love is not, being this idea of what you think good is. It's not always being nice. It's not always being like a perfect person. Acting out of love is imperfect. Acting from compassion is sitting with another person and considering their feelings and their best interests at an equal level to yours. It's not about trying to get that person to like you. It isn't about trying to say the things that you think they want to hear. It's not about trying to smooth over any conflict. It's not something you have to plan. It's not something that you have to decipher. It's about being genuine with people. When you get into an argument with someone and you feel invalidated, or you feel threatened, or you feel like this other person isn't respecting you, how do you respond? Do you respond by rejecting everything they're saying? Do you respond by trying to attack the other person? Do you respond by folding into yourself and just kind of nodding your head and trying to get it over with? I think the hardest thing to do when there's a conflict with someone, and yet the easiest thing to do, or the thing that ends up being the easiest thing to do 99% of the time, is to go into that space in your heart, look at the other person, feel what they're feeling, put yourself in their shoes, think about why they're feeling the way they're feeling, whether you think it's reasonable or not. Then look at yourself and what you're feeling. Take your best interests and what you need out of this situation, and their best interests and their perspective and what they need out of the situation, and see if there's any way for both of you to get what you want. See if there's any way for both of you to be heard. It is so painful to watch people argue when they both want the same thing, but they're convinced that the other person is their enemy. They're convinced that the other person is what's standing in their way, when really they're both just standing in their own way and they can't see that they can both get what they want. We're so alone because we're so afraid that nobody's going to look out for us. So we learn I have to protect myself, and we do that at the expense of doing what's best for everybody. And what's so hard is it's so tough being one of the only people around you who's making the conscious effort to do that. when you're one of the only people doing that, oh my god, it's so fucking tiring. Sometimes it feels like you just want to give up, because sometimes no matter how much you speak from here, no matter how much you try to be compassionate, sometimes it's just not reflected to you. And maybe you can argue that's just a reflection of your own closed heart, but that's, goddamn, it's really fucking hard. Like, it's really, really fucking hard. I know it didn't exactly have the most uplifting video or provide the most solutions, which is ironic that I'm trying to provide solutions when I feel like all this is about is being myself and speaking from my heart, and then making a video, and then you guys watch it or don't watch it or do what, I don't even know. What's even happening right now? Dude, I am way too fucking tired. To end off this video, I do want to say I am so grateful to have you guys, and honestly, I don't step into that feeling of gratitude enough. I often spend time avoiding looking at my subscriber count or my YouTube or how many views I'm getting the longer I stay away from my page, because I get so worried that nobody really cares about what I have to say, or that what I have to say isn't valuable. But every single time I make a video, so many of you guys leave really curious, insightful comments. And it's one of the few times where I feel like my thoughts are really well received and are really taken to heart and meant from a place of curiosity and love and not judgment. And I'm really grateful to see that. I'm really grateful to see that you guys listen and you guys care. So, thank you. Like, really, thank you. I'm gonna go. This has been a weird video. Thank you guys. I love you guys, and have an amazing day. See you in the next video. Wait. Now I'm 6 feet tall. Yeah.